Hi everyone, and welcome to the Fake Love and Flying Monkeys podcast. My name's Nova Gibson and I am your host. My area of expertise is in supporting victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse and other toxic relationships. I'm the principal counsellor at Brighter Outlook Narcissistic Abuse Counselling Service, and I'm also the author of Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. In this podcast, we're going to be talking about everything from the initial pink cloud you find yourself on at the start through to the horrific discard and the powerful trauma bond that keeps you hooked. So take your imaginary seat on the roller coaster that is narcissistic abuse, and don't forget to subscribe to this podcast so you never miss an episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fake Love and Flying Monkeys. What scares the narcissist? What do they fear the most? You might ask me, well, Nova, why should we care? What scares them? Well, I think it helps to know how the narcissist thinks, how they tick, because it helps us to stay away. It helps us to break away and escape. And it also helps us to help you as the victim to understand how your behaviors, your actions often have the absolute opposite effect with the narcissist that they would with someone who is not disordered. When we're dealing with a normal person, and when I say normal, I mean someone who is clearly not a narcissist and is not engaging in those consistent patterns of abusive behaviors over space and time, we might think that certain things we do will produce a certain outcome. In other words, 1 + 1 = 2. You engage in a certain behavior, it will elicit this response. With the narcissist, you're dealing with someone who is wired very, very differently from you and who is seeking to protect their wounded, vulnerable, true self. It's actually a shame-based disorder, and they will seek to protect that wounded true self, we call it, at all costs. So this leads me to the number one thing that I believe narcissists fear the most. So the number one thing I'm going to talk about today that really scares the narcissist, really puts the wind up them, is exposure. As I was saying earlier, their true self is weak. It's vulnerable, and they look down on everyone else whom they view as weak. So they are not going to want to have their vulnerabilities exposed to the world. This is why they form that false self. That mask is worn and it is changed and replaced depending on the person who is standing in front of them. And it is developed over a lifetime, the false self, that is to mask that true self who would be vulnerable to attack. If you are weak, if you have vulnerabilities, someone can hurt you. So they form this personality, and that personality is, amongst other things, devoid of empathy. So exposure is something that they will protect at all costs. Exposure around who they really are. They don't want anyone to know that they have weaknesses. You can actually get to them by exposing those weaknesses. So that is why they will rage against any real or perceived criticism when you're criticizing them, or they just perceive that because you've looked at them in the wrong way. What you're saying to them is that I see you. I see who you really are. And that produces a massive narcissistic injury. In other words, you wound their ego. They must protect that weak, vulnerable, true self at all costs. So you could say that everything the narcissist does, every action they engage in is about protecting who they really are so that no one sees their weaknesses. They cannot appear to be flawed. That would impact on that grandiose view of themselves, whether they're a covert or overt narcissist. If the narcissist perceives any kind of criticism from you, then what you're threatening to do to them, or this is what they perceive, is you're threatening to destroy a lifetime of work. They literally spend their entire lives supporting that facade, that false self, that personality, the new personality, which says, no one can hurt me, I'm better than you. And if you even dare to tell me that I am flawed, the punishment will be swift, it will be fast, it will be at complete odds to any perceived crime that you have committed, because you are telling me that this mask, I have spent so much time and I put so much effort into maintaining, you're telling me it's not real. They will never face or reflect on the fact that they are like every other human being in that they have flaws. They are not perfect. And this is why exposure of that true self is the number one thing that they fear in life, and it is what they will put the most effort into protecting. Number two thing the narcissist fears the most, in my opinion, is to be forgotten. The narcissist wants to remain inside your head forever. They put a great deal of work into creating that emotional and physical, sometimes, roller coaster that they want you to remain on board for as long as you live, if that's possible, and they will do everything in their power to remain inside your head. To be forgotten is to be rendered insignificant, and that produces a major wound to their ego. So often we think that, we're dealing with a normal person, and that if we tell the narcissist what we think about them after they've discarded us, that we will hurt them and they will suffer the same pain that they put us through. But really, what we're doing is we're giving them what they crave most in the world. We're giving them attention. It's so hard sometimes to just go no contact and to get on with that healing journey. You want to see them hurt, and you want to see them get a little bit of their own justice. You want to see karma take place. But to do that as you might do with a normal person, I'm not talking about engaging in getting a lawyer and seeking retribution and justice through the courts, if that's possible. I'm talking about remaining in communication with them in any way, shape, or form. If you are communicating with them, whether it's to yell at them and tell them how pitiful they are, or you're sad and you're telling them that they've missed you, or you're telling them that you're fine without them, it doesn't matter, because your words, your actions are telling the narcissist that they are inside your head. In other words, they're still significant to you, and they still have the ability to impact your life. This is why it's so important to be proactive, not reactive when you're going no contact. Don't wait for them to do it. Don't just assume because they've blocked you that you can get on with it now and you won't hear from them again, because when you expect it the least, and it's normally when it looks like you're starting to heal, or they hear that you're happy again, goodness forbid, that is when they will engage in some behavior, whether it's through a flying monkey or they contact you themselves or they just show up somewhere. They want to do this to regain control of you. They don't want you to ever forget about them, because can you imagine the wound to their ego after putting all of that effort into securing you as a potent source of supply? They want to be able to fall back on you. They want to be able to re-enter your life in 6 months, a year, 10 years down the track and reignite the trauma bond, to reestablish that control over your mind. And it's all about making sure that people are always proving to them or showing them that they are important. I know I say this a lot, but believe me, when you go no contact and you do render them an insignificant part of your life, a part of your past that can no longer hurt you, or someone you just don't even think about in any kind of context whatsoever, believe me, you will get your revenge. But your revenge is not going to be something that you will most probably see. In other words, your revenge will not involve karma that you can see. They will get their karma because you going no contact and never contacting them again or allowing them to contact you means that they are not inside your head. And believe me, they will hurt. That will make them angry. They will not hurt like you and I hurt, because you'd have to have feelings. You'd have to have more feelings than your average green tree snake, which they don't possess, but it will wound their ego. That's all they've got. And they, as I said earlier, spend their entire lives maintaining that ego, maintaining that false self that says they're amazing. And when you are telling them through your actions that you're not thinking about them anymore, believe me, there is a narcissistic injury there that you've created of massive proportions. But they're not going to be able to get to you, to hurt you, because you have put those boundaries in place, hopefully, so that they can't. And when I say hurt, I mean hurt you in terms of reestablishing that cycle of abuse with the honeymoon phase, perhaps, and eventually the inevitable devaluing, followed by the discard and then the hoover. It always happens, and every time they manage to suck you back, it gets worse, because then they've got to punish you for thinking that you can live without them and trying to render them insignificant. Number 3 thing the narcissist fears the most is being alone. This kind of supports the last 2 fears I've been speaking about, in that if they are alone, then they have no one telling them or reflecting back to them that mask is real. They are alone with their true self. And that, once again, is a fate worse than death. That is why they must have someone around them at all times. They must be in some kind of a relationship where they're either getting negative or positive supply. This is why, particularly if you're or you were in an intimate relationship with the narcissist, they will have someone lined up before they discard you. They will be grooming and love bombing someone else, but they won't let go of you most of the time until they have secured that next source, simply because they can't be alone. And as I've spoken about on previous podcasts, they then have a smorgasbord of narcissistic supply, in that they're soaking up the positive fumes of the new target who's reflecting back to them how amazing they are. They're reflecting back to them the mask is real. And they're also soaking up the negative fumes of your pain. And that pain is also reflecting back to them that their mask is real. So if ever you've thought about the narcissist getting their karma, guys, then being alone is it. As they get older and they start to lose their sources of supply, maybe they're no longer working, they haven't got those little children who are besotted with their mummy and daddy, as most children are, and they're really just honing in on their adult children for supply. Their looks are starting to dry up, and basically they've burnt so many people, then that's when their karma begins. It all starts with a loss of their oxygen. Narcissistic supply to a narcissist is like oxygen to you and I. So you think about it. They've got no one to let them know that that mask they've spent their entire life forming is real. They are alone with all of those weaknesses and all of those things they despise and punish everyone else for. They're alone with that true self. And that's when they will get their karma. That's when they start to experience anxiety, and they basically will become that agitated, anxious heap because they've no longer got that fuel. Will they take responsibility even at that time that maybe they had something to do with the fact that none of their grandiose dreams came to fruition? Of course not. It will always be someone else's fault. But this is when you'll really start to see them have problems. They'll start to play the victim, of course, because any kind of affliction they have, anxiety, depression, which stems from them not being able to manipulate people and secure that supply like they once did, they will seek to use your empathy against you if they can. So if you see that happening to an abuser, or you hear about it happening, or perhaps it's a narcissistic parent that you've managed to go no contact with, please don't fall for the fact that what you're seeing is somehow the changed person, and that now you really might see change and accountability. What you're really seeing is karma and a new weapon to use against you to hook you back in. Being alone is something that they simply can't deal with, because that true self is just too weak, and they do not want to be like every other mortal, like every other human being. So they've got to have other stimuli, other people around them to support the notion that they are better than everyone else. They've got to have people around to manipulate. Number 4 thing the narcissist fears is your happiness. If you're happy, if you're successful, then you're better than them, in other words. You can be happy, but only if it's the result of something that they've done, something that's going to boost their ego. Now, certainly, if they've discarded you, or especially if you've left them, then your happiness is the biggest stuff you to the narcissist, because you're telling them, you're reflecting back to them that they were not the number one person in your universe, and that the world does not revolve around them. And they also know that you may find someone else who will treat you better than them. They're very aware of how they treat you like garbage, but they feel entitled to do that. And they fear that you may find someone else who will expose the abuse that you've been through and will treat you like the prince or the princess that you deserve. And that will wound their ego. Your happiness is something that they can never genuinely feel. And it produces massive feelings of envy. They can't be genuinely happy. So this is why they will always seek to destroy your happiness. When you're happy, you will find that their mood goes down. They start to get agitated, angry, and you don't know why. So then they set about destroying your happiness. And then what happens? Their mood elevates. In other words, your happiness makes them feel bad, and they fear that you will go on and live a happy life, something they know they truly never will experience, because they're always envious of what others possess. They're also thinking that other people are always envious of them, but they're very aware of their manipulative tactics, and they fear you being happy with someone else, with something else, and that you will no longer believe that they are the only person in the world that can make you happy, because now you have contrast. Now you know they lied to you. Now, there are many other things the narcissist fears, but number 5, and the last thing I'm going to speak about in this podcast, is losing control. The narcissist needs to be in control at all times. This is why they will go from job to job. If they're not the boss, if they're not the CEO or the one that calls all the shots, they can't stand being told what to do. If someone's telling them what to do, what they're hearing is, you think you're better than me. You think that I haven't done a good enough job. In other words, they're being criticized. So they will quit their job and they will find another one. And then, of course, the same thing's going to happen. They're going to be given their orders at work, and they cannot be told what to do by anyone. This is why they go to court, they put their hand on the Bible, swear to tell the truth, and they pathologically lie because they think they're better than everyone else. They think that if a court of law is telling them that they've done the wrong thing, then that court is beneath them. All those rules are wrong because they're right, and they should be able to do whatever they want to do. They feel entitled. This is why narcissists gravitate to positions of power. The heads of large organizations, CEOs, positions where they can influence people and they have people hanging off their every word. They want to control the narrative. They want to control the situation. They want to control you, because if they don't feel in control, then you might be able to outsmart them. You might actually have a little power. to manipulate them, and they're the only ones that are allowed to do the manipulating in this relationship. So they will do everything they can to retain that control. It's written in the stars from the second you meet the narcissist that their number one goal is to get control of you, to get control of your mind, your body, if possible, and everything else in your life. And to do that, they most often start their control under the guise of caring. This is what coercive control looks like. If they were to engage in the behaviors they do much further down the track, where you can't talk to your own mother on the phone without fear that you're doing something wrong or you've betrayed them in some way, if they would do that to start with, you'd never stay. You would never allow that. So it starts off under the guise of caring. Maybe if it's to do with the relationship with your mother, perhaps they'll say, oh, look, your mum, she really doesn't like me, and you know what, I don't know why, and I don't understand why she treats me so badly, and you know, I get really upset when you talk on the phone to her. It's only because I care about this relationship so much. And what do? You start timing the phone calls to your mother for when the narcissist is not around. Or maybe it's that in the beginning, if it's an intimate relationship, they want to go clothes shopping with you, and you think it's amazing. They care about you so much. They want to help you shop for clothes, and it's fun. But further down the track, when you want to wear something that you have not asked their permission to wear, you will see their rage because you have dared to deviate from their control. In other words, you're not asking their permission, and you are doing something that they may not like. This is where the lines of love and control get very blurred because of that insidious, slippery slope from it being or appearing to be a caring gesture into something that's suffocating, that if you don't do, you fear the punishment. That's what coercive control is all about. It's about being dominated and engaging in the behavior they want you to engage in through fear of punishment. And that may be that you give up all of your passions, all of the things that bring you joy in life, because the silent treatment, the slamming of the fridge door, it was just all too much to bear. So that coercion, which was the punishments, made you give up those activities, which of course will be used against you. The lines are also blurred here in terms of you not being able to have a comeback, or you feel like you got no comeback because you did say yes, you did give up those passions yourself. So the narcissist can say things like, well, I didn't tell you to do it. I didn't make you give that up. I didn't give you any kind of punishment or retribution because you weren't home at a certain time. I just told you that it was disappointing because I wanted to spend so much time with you. So really, it's you being selfish and you realizing that you've given up those activities because I was right. They are taking too much time away from the relationship. So they twist everything around so it appears like they're not in control. The narcissist has to be in control 100% of every relationship. And if they fear they're losing control, then they will do everything in their power to regain that control. And if it's pretty obvious that they have lost that, they will move on. at the drop of a hat. There will be no looking back, and they will find a new source whom they can control, but they won't forget about you. And if they can, they will seek to hoover you, which once again is simply about claiming a stake, or staking a claim, I should say, on their property and regaining control, getting back inside your head, not being alone, all of those things that I've just spoken about. They must be in control of you. And if they can't have control, they'll move on. And that brings us to the end of another Fake Love and Flying Monkeys episode. Just a few insights there, guys, into what the narcissist fears, to help you understand their behaviors, and of course to help you understand your own and how they impact on your ability to escape and of course to heal. So if you're seeking more answers, if you're after some more support, please don't forget that I am a professional counsellor here in Brisbane, Australia. All my counselling sessions are online via Zoom. So please just see my website link below. And don't forget to get your copy of my book, Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. You'll also find a link in the description. On that note, guys, please follow me on my social media. Please get together and chat about the episodes on the private support group on Facebook. And until tomorrow's episode, remember, you are worthy of love, and you are worthy of so much more than a lifetime of fake love and flying monkeys.